Thanks, Annie. And if folks could please mute their microphones if you're not talking, that would be great. Is there any public comment on items not on today's agenda? Okay, scene one. Adrian Beck, why don't you kick this off? We have a request to authorize the chair, that would be me, to sign a facility use agreement with the University of Montana.
And I am your stand-in for Adrian Beck today. She apparently was triple booked this morning. So, yeah.
Hey.
So you're stuck with me. This is just a facility use agreement with the University of Montana to continue the vaccination clinics. It just covers additional staffing and cleaning costs associated with using their facilities. That's what I got.
Great. I motion to approve that the chair sign the facility use agreement.
We'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Ann.
Commissioners.
Thanks, Ann. All right, Emily Brock, we have a contract related to construction of a shade structure on the fairgrounds.
Morning. So this is a contract with Boss Log Builders for construction of a shade structure in the amount of $30,346. The structure is part of the historic plaza, and during the fair it will host bingo, and then the remainder of the year it will just be a shade structure for public use and for our rentals of that space. The structure was designed by A&E, and then we are going to manage the construction in-house, so not through a GMAX amendment. This went through procurement that we managed in-house, and we will manage the contractor in-house. There were 3 proposals from local. We requested proposals from 3 local companies, and Boss Log was the only one that chose to submit. We think this price is very reasonable, and the funds will come from the special district.
Great. More shade is good.
And bingo.
And bingo, yes.
And I can't tell if Strohmeyer is trying to throw some shade there. Yeah. Is that a metaphor? Okay. I motion that the board approve the contract with Boss Log Builders, and I'm looking forward to the structure.
I will second that. Any further discussion on getting this shade shelter in the works? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, Emily.
Yep.
Kylie Paul, you've got a couple items for us. The first of which is an obligating document between Missoula County and Montana DES for federal FEMA funding for the 9 Mile Creek Drought Mitigation Project.
Yes, thank you, everyone. This is Kylie Paul, Natural Resource Specialist, and also here available for any questions will be Paul Parson and Catherine Redfern with Trout Unlimited. And if there's actually further information requested, we have some information to provide if there's any media interest here. But because this is a really neat thing that's happened, the county and Trout Unlimited applied for FEMA funding through the Hazard Mitigation Assistance Pre-Disaster Mitigation program, and were awarded $1.2 million to continue help and efforts on those restoration activities that have been being led by Trout Unlimited in the 9 Mile. So this is essentially here the agreement between Missoula County, which was awarded the funds, and the DES to move those through the state from feds. So this is that first level of agreement here.
Why don't we go ahead and talk about both of these things since they're related?
Sure, and then the next one will be the agreement between Missoula County and Trout Unlimited as that agreement to essentially help move those funds from the work that Trout Unlimited does on the ground via our system and through then to the state DES. So that would be the subrecipient agreement that could be signed here as well.
Paul, do you have anything you want to add?
No, just I guess a note of gratitude to the county for working with us on this and being able to continue this important work. Looking forward to getting started on it.
So could you just, even at a high level, paint a picture of what additional work is going to get accomplished out there?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. It's this summer we plan to start another 6,500 feet of channel construction. So we'll remove and regrade historic placer mine piles that are essentially left there from dredging operations that occurred in the 40s, 50s. And we'll start to build wetlands and habitat along that floodplain, along that 6,500 feet. So it'll be a rather large construction operation. It'll take a few years, but it'll restore quite a bit of this damaged landscape.
And is it contiguous with the section that we toured last summer?
Yes, it'll start exactly downstream from the work that you saw this summer. Yeah, it'll tie right into that. That's where we'll start, hopefully in June.
Great.
So impressive. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
good work. Well, we can take both of these simultaneously.
I'm gonna motion that the chair sign items 3 and 4.
Very good. I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Kylie. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Good work. Okay. Eric Dixon, we have memorandum of agreement with Susan O'Connor for some work on Rattlesnake Drive.
Yes, so Rattlesnake Drive, always a popular discussion topic, and the reason we have it today is that you may be well aware of the asphalt condition on the county portion of the road, and we were going to do an overlay project through there, but in order for us to make a worthwhile effort, we are going to, of course, remove some trees and improve the drainage so that our planned work would last a little bit longer than it would otherwise. So we had marked a bunch of trees for removal, and of course the neighbors saw that and started calling and asking questions. And there was enough interest in saving the trees that Ms. O'Connor was able and willing to buy the asphalt for our work with the condition that we do not remove the trees. And at this point in time, I think that's a reasonable solution. There are definitely going to have to be some improvements in the future, but I think that's going to be a longer term planning effort than we wanted to wait for the asphalt condition. So this overlay that Ms. O'Connor is willing to provide for us will buy us that time that we can continue working with the residents up there in the Forest Service and really start talking about maybe some alignment improvements as well as pedestrian facility additions and how that's going to work with tree removals and impacts to the neighborhood. So this is I think a very generous offer by Ms. O'Connor to buy us some time to come up with a good solution that everyone can live with.
How long do you think this this asphalt will last, this application?
Oh, I think we could easily get 8 to 10 years out of it. So that's why I say it. It will definitely get us through, as long as we keep it active, a planning process for some more substantial improvements that I think are really quite necessary for that area.
Okay, so even with all the freezing, thawing, buckling, and the drainage issues, it'll last another 8 to 10 years?
I think so. I can't say when we last provided an overlay up there, but even in areas like this, ideally the asphalt would last a lot longer with proper drainage. But I think yes, even in this condition, that time frame would be completely reasonable.
Great. And it's O'Connor's funds and very generous of her. So yeah, wow.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think we ought to send her a thank
I
you
think-
letter of some sort.
Sure.
And that can come from the commissioner's office.
Okay.
No, this seems like a good solution that will help, I guess, demonstrate that we don't always pull out the chainsaw initially to,
We can be bought, yes.
as much
Yes, we
as
can.
we will cut trees on occasion. There are other options too. So no, this is great. Thanks for your work on this, Eric, and
Yeah, you're
thanks to Ms. O'Connor.
So I motion that we sign the chair sign the memorandum of agreement.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And Ann and Chris, would you mind just making a note that we would like to send a thank you letter to Susan O'Connor?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dave, I just got back, so I'm joining in.
Just in time.
Thanks. Who are we thanking?
We are thanking Susan O'Connor for being willing to cover the costs of a pavement asphalt overlay up Rattlesnake Drive.
That was a wonderful thing she did. I'm glad.
$80,000.
And it's
Yeah.
great that she and Shane could take a ride and look at trees and come to some agreements. So
Yep. Okay, next item, Melissa Gordon, if you are available. We have a CDBG revolving loan fund, small business job retention grant program item.
Yes. So this is the final contract for that grant program. You all approved 27 contracts early in January. One contract in the amount of $19,900 was revoked because the applicant was not eligible for funding. And Vim and Vigor was the next eligible business, and they were thrilled to hear about the funding opportunity. They have a total of 7 employees, and they had to lay off 10 employees in 2020. So this $19,900 grant award will enable them to retain 1 FTE for a low and moderate income person.
This is Vim and Vigor. They make amazing socks, right?
Yeah.
Is that
construction
Vim and
stock.
Vigor? I'm thinking
Yep.
I love them. Yeah. It's great for circulation and support. Everyone should have a pair. And really cool designs. I'm glad we could do this.
Any other questions? How about a motion?
Go
Juan,
ahead,
do you have
Josh.
that language in front of you? I'm having a hard
I
time
do.
pulling it up.
Yeah, no worries. I approve the contract, or I motion that the board approve the contract in the amount of $19,900 to Vim and Vigor from the CDBG revolving loan fund.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye.
Thanks so much,
Melissa.
Melissa. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, good work. All right, next, Andrew, a resolution relating to financing of a proposed project, namely the election center, establishing compliance with reimbursement bond regulation under the Internal Revenue Code.
Yes, the next item will describe the project in case you will go into that. This is a new GMAX contract for the remaining items to be built out at the fairgrounds. And we wanted to bring this to you now because I had planned on budgeting for it and starting construction after the beginning of the new fiscal year. But there's a real financial incentive for us to keep Jackson on the grounds and do the construction now, as construction costs are going up and we've got them locked in now. They won't have to dismantle and reappear later. So it's a good time to go ahead with the project. And with that, I'd like to put a reimbursement resolution in place now so we can reimburse ourselves from a future bond issuance, or it's not going to be a bond issuance, it'll be a private placement with First Security Bank. But this will allow us to start the project, spend some money and get reimbursed later on. So that's what this reimbursement resolution is about.
Why don't we,
Am I
before we take
confused?
action,
Is there an election center, or is that, am I on the wrong one?
It's
you're
election
on the right
center,
one.
not fairgrounds. Andrew, you said fairgrounds, you meant election center.
Oh, excuse me.
No
I'm
worries.
still
trying
tired.
to slip a fast one by us yet again.
Yeah. Well, I can.
So Casey, why don't you describe the project? Why don't you talk about the second item here too? That might go hand in glove with what Andrew just described.
Yep, so this second GMAX is for the renovation of the south end of the election center, so which was previously a big freezer space that we had leased out. So that's for the dismantling of that and turning that into what will be the counting center for elections, but also a large public meeting space and also a space for Office of Emergency Management as a backup kind of operations center. So we'll build that out. As well as an addition for waiting space, and then the whole site work. So redoing the entire parking lot and landscaping with that. So this covers all that, and some of the, as Dory brought in front of you last week, we're applying for some MRA funds. About half of that is included in what this GMAX is, and then the other half is not included, and those are the items that are in the office space, like the lift and life safety stuff in the office space. So that's in addition to this scope.
And then
Casey, you know what's going to happen with those panels and the compressor for the cooler? Those are worth money out in the world. Are we deconstructing and selling those things, or are they going somewhere else?
We were initially in talks with VW ICE, who was leasing that space, but I believe they didn't express any interest in it, and I think that they're at the age that it'd be more expensive to move them and deconstruct them than it's worth. So the compressors we might keep and try and resell those, but the overall freezer space I don't think would be repurposed. Is my current understanding, not the panels. Yes.
So those panels are they're attached to, they can't be pulled off the walls?
My understanding is they probably could be, but it would be expensive to do so. Yeah.
So they're just going to be left in place and
no, they'll just be fully demolished, is my understanding of what Jackson. So they won't be taken down in a way that they could be reused, is my understanding.
I see.
Yeah, they're worth a lot out there in the world, but
yeah, we can reapproach Jackson and see if they know of any. I mean, I just don't know of any potential buyers of that. But.
Sure.
Well, yeah, if there are stones that have been left unturned that could be the recipients of these items, it seems like it would be a good way to keep stuff out of the landfill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you approach them again just one more time, Casey?
Yeah, I'll readdress it with them and get their opinions on it to see if it's worth rehashing it out. But it was the discussion at one point.
Casey, I can put you in touch with Dave Prather from the Western Montana Growers Co-op. There's like 40 some odd farms in there, and most all these farms have on-site coolers, and coming up with used panels like that is really a score, because new, they're super expensive. So maybe they'd be willing to buy them.
Great. Yeah. If you want to send me that contact, I can reach out to them. So.
And I want to mention, this is going to go a long ways towards clarity of speech in local government. Now, when we say ICE, we know it's not hockey, it's not immigration, and it's not what VW ICE. That's going to go away. So now we're just going to deal with hockey and immigration.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then another cost savings part of this project will be Public Works is hopefully going to be able to contribute some of their time in terms of tree removal and maybe some asphalt work or sub pumps.
Gotta throw in that tree removal since we just saved some trees up the Rattlesnake.
Good season for that. So.
Andrew,
can we do these items together, or that they need to be separate?
No, we can move them together. Andrew, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, I was about to say what Casey just said about Public Works and Shane volunteering his staff to come out, and that'll significantly cut down the cost of the pavement and the tree removal. So this dollar amount is not to exceed. It's going to be much lower than this, in my opinion.
That's great. All right, I would move. We approve items 7 and 8.
Second.
Any further discussion, questions, comment on this? See none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, Casey. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks a lot, Casey and Andrew.
Thank you.
Way to set the bar high on elections in Missoula County and the state of Montana. So moving right along. Nicole, you've got a number of items for us today.
Yep. Good morning. So the first item is a draw request for payment form for ATG to finish out their current grant, which was awarded to create 68 jobs. They are graduating their 4th AIM cohort, I think this week, and I think I've hired 27 total people out of that cohort. So we're drawing on the last 16 jobs for this grant.
That's great.
Juanita and Josh, unless you have any problems with any of these, maybe we just have Nicole run through them all and we'll vote on them as a block.
Great idea.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead,
Great.
Nicole.
Yep. So then we have 2 closeout certifications. We're closing out audience awards. And then we are also closing out ALPS insurance BSTF grants. And then the final item is a contract extension for Consumer Directs grant. We just asked for an additional year of time for them to finish their job creation grant. So we'll extend their contract until January 2022.
Great. And I've got a few DocuSigns, I think, in my inbox that that might be related to some of these items that I was almost tempted to sign, but then realized I don't think we've actually voted on any of this stuff yet. So
right, the Consumer Direct is the one you emailed me about earlier this week, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I motion to approve requests 9 through 12.
Excellent. I'll second that.
Very good. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
You bet. All right, and it looks like we have one of our standard employment agreement amendments before us. This is Jacqueline at PHC.
Yeah, so this is to increase her hours. She's currently a 3/4 time employee. This would increase her to a full-time employee at Partnership. And she's an advanced practitioner, so a nurse practitioner in this case, so for them.
Okay. What do you think?
Let's do this. I would move we increase Jacqueline's hours from 30 to 40.
Second, thank you, Jacqueline Taranaki.
Yeah.
All right.
Taraniki.
You probably noticed I was not so bold as to even try to pronounce the last name. So any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And so ends our action items today. Any correspondence we need to deal with? It sounds like we finally cleared up the discussion of whose sheriff department in the Bitterroot needed to be contacted from that one constituent. So it's a Ravalli County issue, not Missoula County. So
I was so heartened to hear that.
Where was the incident located? I was confused, Dave, when you said that. What happened? That it was
apparently south of our county line. I'm not sure. Down in the Florence area, perhaps somewhere.
Great.
But not our issue. So
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So commissioners, I do have one piece of correspondence to get your feedback on, and this could also go under your discussion item. So if you'd like me to hold it, but NACO put out some information today on the proposed COVID relief, the newest draft that's being considered by the House or being put together by the House that would have direct funding for local governments. And it uses a population-based distribution formula, which is good for Missoula County because, again, as you'll recall last time, populations or counties with more than 500,000 people received a direct allocation. This would be a direct allocation to counties and cities based on population. So the state would get the money, but would be required to distribute it on a population-based formula. So that's actually good for us as opposed to it going to the state and then having to go through the reimbursement process. So I thought we may want to encourage our delegation to vote for our federal delegation to vote for that. And if you want that, then I'd ask, I'll work with Allison and the communications staff to put together a draft. But that news came across from NACO this morning.
Yeah,
That's
Absolutely.
good
Thank
catch,
you.
Chris. That sounds just like what we'd want.
Okay, great. Then we'll work to put a letter together and have that on admin for you next week.
okay. Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Great, thank you.
And I hear the legislature's in session.
Oh, the legislature is in session. Luckily, I only have two things for you today, so not too many bills to talk about. The first one is actually still in draft form, and this was just a request because many of you have relationships with Senator Bryce Bennett to contemplate whether you would consider reaching out to him. He has put in a bill draft request. As you'll recall, there was an earlier bill that Missoula County testified in opposition of Montana Association of Counties and Montana Clerks and Recorders all came out of to require that the elections administrator be the clerk and recorder. This bill would require the elections administrator to be independently elected. So we go back to that same fundamental core issue of having the person who is running the election also be on the ballot for which they're responsible for counting the election. So the question was whether any of you would feel comfortable reaching out to Bryce and asking him to consider not putting that forward given the opposition that the previous bill about putting this on the ballot saw.
I'm happy to reach out to him. I may have to get a few numerical details from you, Chris, so I don't bungle my words, but Bryce and I have gone back and forth on email on this, so I'm happy to do that. And, you know, if they force the issue, I'm going to have to do this rap in public, but hopefully it won't come to that.
I'm really looking forward to the rap in public.
You testified directly with that rap, but that's just so.
Yeah, I fully support suggesting to Bryce that he pull that, or the reality is it will be vigorously opposed. So.
Yeah, like I said, that one has not yet been formally introduced. It is still just a draft, and so it seems like it might be worth having that conversation on the front end with him rather than having to come out in opposition if it's actually introduced this morning. So. That was the main bill. I apologize. My memory is failing me, which is happening more and more frequently around what the second bill was. So I'm trying to pull up my notes.
Well, while you were looking for that, Chris, something came up in our meeting with Republic Services yesterday.
That was the one.
Is that it? HB 338.
There we go. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, HB 388, Dave, you had asked specifically to talk about. This would remove the requirement or certificate of need from the Public Service Commission related to waste hauling. So, as you know, right now in Missoula County, there is one certificate of need for that, and that is held by Republic Services. This would remove that and would kind of allow I want to say a free market, but in this case, not necessarily a free market. As you know, some areas really need to be regulated and may be better served by being more monopolistic just because otherwise there is no economy of scale necessarily to be garnered by diversification. And so that was the other bill as to whether the county wanted to take a position on that. It is not yet scheduled for hearing in the period that we look forward to. It's on the 18th of February, and we're not looking quite that far ahead yet, but it'll be good to know your position on that so that when we get to that, we can appropriately craft a message.
Chris, do you feel like you could speak to this if I ask some questions about the bill?
I can try.
So one of the things that I was moved by yesterday hearing Chad talk was that the economy of scale you mentioned allows low-cost service to get to places that have small populations. And if there were multiple companies, these places in our county that have small populations would end up paying an awful lot, because in reality right now it may not be the case that the amount of money they pay for garbage service actually covers the cost of providing that garbage service. But because the same company is offering service to the metropolitan area, those costs can be spread out among the backs of many, many people. And I was moved by that and thinking, oh my goodness, does this mean diversification or kind of a freeing up of this monopolistic market would necessarily cause an increase in rates for people in places like Seeley Lake or Condon?
Yeah, so the short answer, I wish Eric Dixon or Shane were still on, Josh, before you joined the commission, and Dave, it might have been before you joined the commission, I'm not sure. Previously, the county actually ran the refuse district in Seeley Lake and actually did the trash hauling and had to go out to contract. It is actually less expensive for residents in Seeley Lake. We've been able to keep the cost down versus the growth curve they were on by contracting with Republic Service for exactly the reason that you're talking about. The economy of scale, because they already travel to the Reno Potomac area and everything else. There was economy of scale of them being able to pick up that Seeley refuse district, and so we actually, as you know, now contract with them to manage the refuse district in Seeley Lake, even though it is still a county refuse district. But we contract with them because it was cheaper than the cost of employing both the full and part-time employees that were necessary to be able to manage that, and then the cost of hauling on top of it.
Right.
Chris, so since this is not going to...
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was just going to say, since this is not going to be heard in committee until the 18th, would it make sense to discuss this in a little more depth, say next Tuesday, and have Eric or others present for that?
Yeah, we could certainly invite Shane and Eric. That would be great.
And also, I'd love to hear from Rebecca.
Yeah, and we may want to invite Kim, who kind of manages that district as well.
And just more broadly, if the legislative team wants to discuss this, I mean, at this point in time, I'm inclined to want to oppose 338, but I guess I would love to have a little bit more intel from folks.
So, Chris, one other question on this. To what degree, if this bill was passed, to what degree would the PSC not have power over rate increases in garbage?
So I, related to this, the way I read this bill, it seems to only impact the certificate of need. So they would just no longer be able to say that, based on their analysis, only one provider is needed in an area versus 2, 5, however many might be needed. And as you'll recall, there are parts of the state that do have multiple refuse haulers. Bozeman is one of them. Billings is one of them. So I don't see necessarily that the PSC would be losing their authority. And again, this is my cursory read of the bill in their, as far as their regulatory authority in rate.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. But yes, we can definitely get those folks on the call for next Tuesday. I'll reach out to Shane and ask if he and Eric and maybe Kim can be on there. And then when we talk to Rebecca on Monday morning, we'll see what she has heard of it and see if she can get us any information.
Great. Juanita, you had a question earlier?
No, Tuesday will be fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, getting Kim would be great.
You bet. Thank you for reminding me, Dave. I knew it was the one you had asked about, but could not remember the number.
No problem. Anything else legislature-wise?
That's another legislative question, Chris, and you may know something about this or not. It's okay. This is just off the cuff. I heard about this yesterday, about a bill that would create a 988 phone number, kind of a mental health crisis line, and then would be funded off of assessing telecommunications lines.
Yes, I actually testified on that bill yesterday.
What do you think?
It's actually a really good thing. So nationally, it is actually a federal mandate. So the state of Montana does not have a choice but to institute the 988 short code. The problem is that the funding for it at the federal level is insufficient for most states to actually be able to then have call centers in them. So there are national call centers now for the 1-800 number that folks can call, and there are local call centers that then you're transferred to in that 1-800 number. But the goal is to have sufficient call centers in each state where people who have access to the local resources and understand the local landscape can connect people in mental health crisis to the right appropriate local resources. Because that's often what's missing when you talk about the national center. They're great at what they do, but they don't understand Montana or Idaho or, you know, places where they're just not located. So Montana has 2 call centers in it currently, but they are part-time call centers that are not open, for example, overnight and not open over the weekend. One is in Billings and one is in Bozeman. They're both run by volunteer organizations, and that's why they're not available 24/7. So that 10-cent fee is designed to help provide 24/7 folks in the state of Montana who could help manage those calls. Western Montana Mental Health is the third kind of not volunteer because they do have some funding attached to theirs, but they'll be opening as a crisis center as well. And so they'd be eligible to take some of those calls also.
Okay, and so this money would just be for call centers for mental health crisis. Is it directly related to suicide or is it all crises?
It's suicide and any mental health crisis. So the money can be spent on other things. So it could be, for example, spent on like Missoula's mobile crisis, as long as the call centers are funded first. So they have to fund the call centers, and then any remaining funds could be made available for other mental health and crisis services.
Okay.
The bill is estimated at 10 cents per access line per month. So $1.20 a year if you pay monthly for your cell phone. Is what we're talking about, would raise about $1.3 to $1.4 million.
And that would just fund the call centers, so, right? And it doesn't require hard funding for the crisis.
It doesn't necessarily guarantee funding. It would depend on how much money was spent on the call centers. That's correct.
So you said that 1.3 or 4, that's what it would do in Missoula County.
No, that's what it would do in the
statewide.
Oh, okay. All right. And then, and then how would we get some of that money for our own call center?
Yeah, so it requires the state suicide prevention officer and the DPHHS to develop rules around how that funding would be distributed. So it is not specified in the bill.
Okay.
So you said approximately $1.20 a year if you have for your cell phone?
That is correct. 10 cents a month. So $1.20 a year.
Not much.
It is not much. Of course, that the concern raised during the questions from the legislature was simply that the state DPHHS office has not come up with what they estimate the cost to be. So no one knows if that number is large enough or too large, right? Like that's the unknown. And that is because, of course, the national legislation was just passed in 2020 with an implementation date by the end of this calendar year. So this hasn't existed anywhere in the country yet before. So every state is scrambling to put this together. And so there's just no, I mean, there literally has not been time to put that information together. So the sponsor is trying to make sure there's some funding, and we just don't know whether it will be enough or not.
Okay.
How much do we pay for 911? Is that also $1?
Yeah, it's $1 per month per subscriber line, and that generates about $13 million. 75% of that comes back to local governments. So Missoula County gets about $800,000, a little over $800,000 a year.
Okay.
So it's designed to be 1/10 basically of what is currently in the 911 system. I will tell you, if anybody wants to know the one bad side effect of 988, and this is just me being funny off the cuff, it's not actually a bad thing, is that it will require you to dial 10 digits in the state of Montana. Sorry.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, so you'll have to dial the 406 now when you want to call Ravine County instead of just 363 whatever. So.
Aha.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one, I guess, purported negative side effect is that Montana will have to move to 10-digit dialing. Of course, so will the rest of the country, but Montana is one of the few remaining states where you don't currently have to dial the area code because we only have one.
Wow.
Most states have more than one area code. We do not. So.
Did you get that, Martin? There's a headline in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rather interesting. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, sorry, Martin. It's not very exciting stuff, but I will tell you, as a former 911 dispatcher, that's why I testified on that bill. There are just a huge number of calls that are taken by 911 and other places where having something like a short code number that's only 3 digits will make the difference in getting people connected to services. Because when you say to somebody, hey, I have a number for you to call. Do you have a pen so that you can write down this 10-digit number? You just know that most people are going, yeah, sure, I have a pen. And just like me right now, they're not holding one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard any rumors about a second area code? I've heard that mentioned from time to time over the last year or two.
Yeah, it keeps coming up, and I think eventually we will get there. It's entirely population based on whether they run out of numbers, and at the rate that cell phones are expanding, we will eventually hit that. I don't know that this will be the trigger, but we will get there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, that will be sad.
I know that no one will want that. That will be
Yeah,
I remember
that will be a problem for the purveyors of T-shirts and other regalia related to 406.
That's exactly right.
And John Hart, to answer your question, no, there is absolutely nothing that Chris Lonsberry does not know. So
again, the only reason I know this is I spent my formative years at 911, and so I spent a lot of time in these issues. So.
Yeah, I knew the answer to that question too, Dave.
Thanks, John. Okay, how about communication needs? Nothing.
Oh, there's something in the chat I didn't see.
Nothing other than.
I'm sorry.
I think John's just making fun of me in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Now I gotcha.
Yeah.
Being slow.
That's okay. Okay. How about COVID-19? Anything to discuss there? Well, I certainly hope they're managing out the TSOS right now in these ultra frigid conditions.
Dave, they did put folks in hotels for a couple days.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
Is someone still there making sure stuff doesn't blow away?
Yes.
Okay.
It's still staffed, still secure, and residents have been taken to hotels for a couple days.
Thanks, United Way.
And their belongings are safe under lock in their locked lockers, and they're still staffed there. So and they'll be ready to go in a few days when it warms up.
That's true. There are their belongings are safe. There are folks who are choosing to stay at the TSOS. So we talked about that this morning, and there's some hiccup in hotels being able to accept people without identification. And on our call this morning, I am working with the folks at the city housing office to try to iron that out. It's apparently a new requirement that IDs are required to check into a hotel, and so Emily Armstrong at the city is working to resolve that.
A requirement of who?
Like FEMA?
No.
I'm sorry.
Hotels.
Right. I guess I'm getting at it. Is that a corporate policy of the hotels as opposed to it's not a federal or state regulation?
It is not a federal or state regulation. It is a hotel policy, and Emily is trying to work through that. That came to light today on my joint TSOS emergency winter shelter call, and so triaging that.
And are the folks who are at TSOS and right now there because they didn't have ID and couldn't get into a hotel, or are they there because they made that they didn't want to go to the hotel, or both?
It's a choice that they're making to stay. Eric, we're concerned about that, and Eric with United Way is working on getting some hot pizzas delivered. They have enough propane, they have enough firewood, that's what I'm hearing. That
Okay.
That the folks running the TSRS are supporting the folks to stay there, but we're trying to get them some hot food delivered.
And then the people who It sounds like you're saying there are people who couldn't get into hotels because they didn't have IDs.
Yeah.
Are the hotels just letting them in, or that's still in process?
That's still in process. I just got an email from Emily Armstrong about it this morning.
Oh.
Yeah, she's working to resolve it, to see if there's some sort of kind of agreement that they can set up with a particular hotel, because Eric Legville did just work with Human Resource Council to get that emergency support grant funding to pay for those hotel rooms. So we're wanting to make sure they're getting utilized.
Well, let us know if you need any additional support brought to bear with the hotels themselves.
Thank you. I offered that on your behalf this morning.
Okay.
Hey, we could certainly make calls. They
Yeah.
could borrow my ID. I'm not using it right now.
Yeah, I offered that. I spoke up.
All right. Well, thanks, Ann. Keep us abreast of all of that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else right now, folks? Okay, you got a few minutes before your next gathering, whatever that might be. Andrew, are you re-emerging to say something?
I was just wondering if you mentioned your authority's website up and running.
I have not. There is now a Big Sky Passenger Rail Authority website that is functional. It's a bit of a placeholder until we're able to do some more design work on it, but we at least have a web presence now. It is bigskyrail.org. The URL.
Okay, great. And we're able to accept donations on the website now.
Yes, and a big shout out to Jason's team and Linda, our very own web designer, and also our finance folks who've helped on the back end get this all set up.
Fantastic.
All right.
Okay.
With that,
Thank you.
have a great day, everyone. Stay warm.
See y'all soon.
Goodbye.